Welcome to another Foodie Friday. This week we are fixing chicken a la king, and it is low histamine, and I am also testing peppers. I haven't cooked with peppers in several years just due to the sort of malaise type blah feeling I would have after eating them. And so I had cut those out of my diet actually several years before I started having problems with histamine. Now, in my research over the past year, I know that they are in the nightshade family as well as being high lectin. And you guys know I have cut out the nightshade family, and then I have learned that I can add that back in with the Instant Pot as long as I pressure cook some of those. So I am just starting this rice. I don't want to get the pot dirty, so I have to wash it again. So I'm using a pot-in-pot technique to cook my rice. I did find that I needed a couple extra minutes on that to get it completely done. So whereas I would normally cook that rice for 4 minutes, go ahead and cook it for 5 or 6. And then I am going to cut up my other ingredients while I wait. I am using a couple ribs of celery here. The original recipe I saw over on Glorious Life on Wheels a few weeks ago. She is cooking this in her van, but I am doing it in going green mom style with the low histamine, low lectin options and testing this out. So I did recently learn that if you have a pepper and it has 3 lobes on the bottom, that is a female pepper. If you have 4 lobes on the bottom, that is a male pepper. And 4 lobes is apparently a little bit more sweet. According to my daughter, the red, yellow, and orange peppers are sweeter than the green peppers, so I don't know, maybe easier to order your groceries and just order those if you're looking for a little bit sweeter variety. I don't think it really makes a difference here, just a fun fact. And I am just dicing this stuff up, trying to get it so it's not like an entire mouthful when you get a bite of celery or pepper. And now that the rice is done, I will go ahead and pull that out. The dish itself is often served on rice, noodles. I believe Carol put hers over toast. Obviously, toast is not an option for me, just due to the gluten issues. Now, I am using my boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Sorry for the earthquake. I am cooking those from frozen. I don't need to add more water because it was already there from before. And I am adding the celery and peppers. Now, I easily could have gone ahead and added the spices at this point. I just didn't think about it and didn't have the recipe up to know what to add anyways. But I have learned recently that your seals can get stretched out if you cook multiple things back to back. The seal will actually, in any way, the seal will sort of stick to the pot just from suction from the moisture, and it will pull out of that little wire corral on the lid. And if you're just cooking one thing at a time, it's not usually a big deal. Try and make sure you get it shoved back up in there. But if you're doing things back to back, a lot of times that will just sag out and it makes it difficult to actually get it to seal again. So you saw me add another seal. That was just so it was not hot. And I recently picked up a 3-pack of these for $8 on Amazon, so it's a really inexpensive fix for this. So the chicken is done. I cooked that 35 minutes at high pressure, and then I pulled that out. I'm going to add the seasonings to the broth and then thicken that up. I used about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, about 1/4 cup of freeze-dried minced onions. I'm also going to use about a 1/2 teaspoon of thyme, a 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic, and a little bit of onion powder. If you would like to learn some more about garlic, we just finished up rosemary in the herb journaling Thursday night lives, so feel free to check those out. And then we will just let this come to a boil. You didn't hear this because I had to turn the volume off, but it is just on saute. It automatically sets that to 10 minutes, and by doing that, it was bringing that up to a boil as I was adding things. Now, in order to thicken this, because the celery as well as some of the broth would have replaced the canned cream of soups that were called for in the original recipe, I am just adding arrowroot powder. I added about 2 tablespoons here, and then here in a little bit I'll add another tablespoon because it just wasn't quite thickening as much as I would have liked it to. The original recipe called for 10 pats of butter, and I couldn't really discern what the purpose of the butter was in the recipe other than possibly somehow adding to the creaminess of it. I went with about 2 tablespoons because I think this will actually be plenty creamy with the cup of milk and the thickening it up with the arrowroot powder. It does give a nice gloss to the sauce though, so a little bit is nice. Now, you'll see me adding the second slurry. I just made that with a little bit of milk because it was what I had sitting next to me. And this really went very quickly. I was kind of surprised. The saute function is set for about 10 minutes, and it went off right as I was sort of finishing up getting this chicken broken up. I didn't bother doing it before I dumped it back in. Kind of like with the chicken teriyaki, just go in with your wooden spoon or spatula and break it up into roughly bite-sized pieces. And it typically works out fairly well. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm serving this over a bed of rice, and then I'm just going to use the measuring cup that I used for the water and the milk, and supper's ready.